Good morning. Board of Supervisors Day in San Andreas. If you can, please stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I want to report out on the closed sessions. We have one on public employee appointment or employment of planning director pursuant to Government Code 54957. Human no action was taken. We had also a conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation, significant exposure, one case, Government Code 549569D2. Again, no action was taken. We have a third closed session and conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure, one case 549569D2, and we will be continuing that to the end of the board meeting. I'd like to move to public comments, be 5 minutes per person, and we will go for half an hour maximum on items not on the agenda.
Jan Clark, Calaveras County Advisory Committee. I presented you guys, you see the little round disc? That's from SECA. And I would like to compliment the board, the clerk, and Jan and Lori for their very prompt response to the advisory committee's reorganization on our appointment to people to our committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Anyone else?
Joe Kelly, back again. Public health, safety, general welfare, and citizenry. A problem. FEMA friend. What a joke. But anyway, I want to start out differently today. Well, I already started, so I can't be different. Mr. Spellman, as I've said in the past, I very rarely get an opportunity to applaud you. Last night meeting on the issue of that up at the concrete plant, the old concrete plant, thank you, sir, for bringing it forward. Possible $5 million worth of revenue. Mr. Edson, you get it too. A thank you for bringing up the issue of it's not working. Mr. Wright, you're in it too. Thank you for bringing it up that you want it brought to a priority meeting. Ms. Ponte, you too. You're in it also. Ms. Callaway, you're not in it. You actually are still on my list. No phone call yet. Phone call is a phone call, a discussion, and a passing back and forth of information between the two of us on FEMA. Haven't had it. So you now meet my number one of my 5 definitions of a politician. Today, I want to express some more on this concept of county government. Mr. Spellman, Mr. Wright, what is your definition of the word shall? S-H-A-L-L. I will use it in a sentence. Thou shalt not steal. What does it mean to you? Does it give you a context of mandatory or discretionary? Worse yet, what's it mean in government speak? On August 5th, August 7th, I submitted a letter to the Board of Supervisors. I received a letter back from County Counsel's office, and I do appreciate it, really, because it made me look like a fool because I thought shall was mandatory. But in the context of this statement in here, you also refer to the Board of Supervisors' dereliction of duty in not enforcing the code This is not an accurate statement, as the county has no mandatory duty to abate a public nuisance. Fox versus County of Fresno, 1985, and it went through an appellate court hearing. And it could not be challenged, and it would not go to the Supreme Court. Noting that in the area of law enforcement, such I guess would be code enforcement, statutes containing shall language are sometimes interpreted as directory or permissive because discretion is inherent in the activity concerned. Even if carry out of the duty imposed by that statute or ordinance, the duty is not considered mandatory. For example, enforcement of zoning ordinances is not mandatory because interpretation of the zoning ordinance involves the exercise of discretion. There is nothing that requires the county to take any action on your complaint. Something else I had to laugh at in it because I find it humorous to me, because I know a little more than county council did. But, oh, well, I'm sorry. No, I take that one back. That wasn't funny. In this issue of Fox versus Fresno County.
You have 1 minute left.
Thank you. In the opinions by Best J, having determined that private property constitutes a nuisance, is a county liable for injury to other property caused by the failure of the county to abate the nuisance? We will conclude that it is not, because a county does not have a mandatory duty to abate a nuisance. That would then bring to mind, why then does this county selectively administrate code enforcement on all these lots that come before you for that $10,000 fine and administrative fees if it is not mandatory, but more so is a selective process? Why does that happen? Why aren't all of them being hit with this $10,000 fine? You folks need to do that. I would ask you this. This board, new boards come in, and they sit down on January 1. They go forward from January 1. There's no looking back. I suggest you all look back, and you put into your codes where the word shall, you determine, you interpret it, you the board, and say shall, and put in parentheses, mandatory if it's mandatory, discretionary if it's discretionary, in parentheses. Then we will all know what the words in this county means. Otherwise, we're all left out in the dark. Thank you very much.
Got your son.
Good morning. Elena Linehan, the manager for the Calaveras Office of Motherlode Job Training. As you know, we do a lot of outreach and work with residents in the community who are looking for work, striving for work, and connecting them with employment. As the economy improves, the economic development of Calaveras County becomes paramount. And I wanted to make sure that you board members understood and knew that we also offer business services. So we not only work with the employees to seek employment, but we also work with the employers to seek employees. And I brought some of our business brochures, and I'll pass those on down to you. There's a variety of ways that we can serve businesses. We have a website where people go work on their resumes, and they can actually have their resumes on that website. An employer can go on and search that website for their employees. So if they have specific characteristics, I'm looking for a carpenter, I'm looking for a lead carpenter, I'm looking for someone with this certification, they can put that information into the search engine and come up with a list of county residents who meet those qualifications. We've done things for businesses such as made rooms available for interviews. We've had some employers ask the employees or potential employees to come to our office, fill out the applications, leave the applications there. So we can do that as well and work with the employer on trying to find that perfect employee for them. You know that we offer training to individuals who need to better their skills, but we also offer that to employers in the reverse. I'll pass this down. We have a program called On the Job Training, and there's three employers right now in Calaveras that are taking advantage of this. This is where you find the right person for your job. They have the right personality. You know they'll show up on time. You know they'll be a good employee. but there's a gap between their skill level and what you need. Well, rather than send them off to school and have them paying the school to come train them so they can be a good employee, we will actually pay you, the employer, for the training time that you spend that time training that employee on the job. And we've got examples of that. A young man who was a stay-at-home dad, his wife was working, and he has some work experience but not the skills needed for the job that he's in right now. But they saw the potential in this man. They could hire him as like a dishwasher, a basic job, but they could actually train him to be a line chef. So we're paying the restaurant to take him through the training so he has those marketable skills as a line chef and also as a baker. So think of the family that we've changed there. You know, now they're able to work with his wife's schedule, so there's no problem with child care. We're changing his life, we're changing his wife's life, changing his child's life, and we're helping that employer find a good employee who was short of the skills needed but had the potential. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware of this program, and if you could help me, I'll be contacting you individually and asking who are your top 5 employers in your district, because I'd like to talk to them about our services and make sure that they're aware of what we do and who we are. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Lynn, do you want to talk about the Institute of Technology?
Yes, we have our office available for businesses or training programs to come and meet individuals. So we have Columbia College keeps office hours once a month at our offices, and this week on Thursday from 11 till 3, the Institute from Technology down in Modesto will be coming and meeting anybody who's interested in learning about their programs. They have an accelerated course where you can get a degree in 14 months or get a certificate in 9 months. They have their hours so that you can do it in the evening, so you can hold a job while you're getting your certification. And they have, I don't have that brochure with me. I'm trying to remember the fields that they study in, but they are fields that are ready to work, not just esoteric degrees that it's nice to have this information, but you can walk out the door with a certificate saying, I'm trained, I can walk in, and I can do this job right away. So they're coming here this week, seeing how it goes, and what we'd like to do is have them either every month or every quarter come and meet with residents from Calaveras County who are interested in getting this training and bettering their skills.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Peter Race, Jenny Lynn, and I am a Tea Partier. Can everybody hear me? Thank you. Pardon me? Oh, okay. I do like to get reports from different organizations, regardless if I agree with them or not. But one of them is kind of grabbed me because, more or less against my will, I do end up general funds being spent there. And one of them is, what is the status of AB 32 implementation? And something that grabs me is California Global Warming Solutions Act. And it goes into what they plan to do, 2020 greenhouse gas emissions and so on. California is getting a real reduction to put us on track, reducing gas emissions to achieve an AB 32 goal of getting back to 1990 levels by 2020. Now, since you had all 5 of you decided to support this for our general fund, and I'm sure you're all very familiar with, so maybe you can educate me. What was the 1990 level that you're achieving and your taxpayers paying for it? It's supposed to have public input. But what bothers me is that, can you please explain who's the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee? I'd love to know the names and their backgrounds. It mentions stakeholders, but it never defines them. So folks, since you all voted for it, and you're all spending general funds for it, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the looting mob called CSAC, you own it. Now, I'm sure you're all up to date on it, and you all agree to it, to finance it, by your general funds. I hope you're going to have a good time explaining it, what they do, what they stand for, and what they promote. Vegging Prop 13, try to lower the limit and requirements Prop 218, because I like to know that some people say, oh, we want to shop locally. How does vegging Prop 13 and going back to 50 plus 1% taxation on their property going to help local businesses? I know you mean well, and as far as I'm concerned, there's two categories. You either do it intentionally or you do it in ignorance. Because I think all five of you are basically good people. And I respect that if you do it intentionally, bless your soul, come out and straight and have the guts to stand up for it and explain it. And those of you who do it out of ignorance, well, you're going to be accountable sooner or later. Elections are coming up because you are spending this county, who's financially strapped, to scumbags that take part in this thing. You own it, and you're going to be called responsible. Now, a lot of people say, hey, as one supervisor, ex-supervisor said, by the time the issue comes up, people forget about it. Well, thank goodness for little boxes like this, it does remind us. And those who don't have it, I'll do my best to remind them. You decided to take your constituents' money for certain issues that I really doubt your constituents really want to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Does anyone else have anything they want to say that's not on the agenda and under the jurisdiction of the board? Okay, we're going to move to consent agenda. We have two items, which is a surprise. Oh, Mr. Segala, did you want to say something?
The older I get, the slower I am. Sorry I wasn't here sooner. I'm just piggybacking on a presentation on about jobs and employment. One of the things that we believe in the Taxpayer Association is that our county is being hampered in economic development or all development due to county government overregulation, and especially in our planning department. We've had a number of projects that could have been very helpful to our community that did not harm the neighbors that were crushed. One of these projects is the, you might remember the shooting range. Well, the shooting range was part of a larger picture for that property, which involved vocational training. And even in spite of not getting the zoning for the property, Mr. Coe is proceeding and in collaboration with the public schools to teach kids or teach adults actually how to operate water systems and to eventually get their certification. These are very high-paying jobs. They're skilled, and they do require vocational training. And so he's moving ahead, even under the burden of practical oppression from the county on getting his property plans for his property approved. I think we need to rethink our approach to development in this county and to become proactive in support of property rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segala. Okay, anyone else? Okay, I'm going to move to the consent agenda. We have two items, the minutes and the transfer of title and ownership of the water tenders.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I haven't asked. I'm sorry. Does anybody want to pull the minutes of the water tenders? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Want to move to the regular agenda. Item 6, approve a records retention schedule from the clerk of the board. Ms. Severo, did you want to take the lead on this item?
Sure. As you can see in the information included in the agenda packet is we're trying to adopt a record retention schedule that will allow us a number of things. One of the things it will do is it will, the highest thing is it will allow us to destroy documents that are no longer required by government code for us to keep in a hard copy form or to keep at all. So as you can see from the attached schedule that most of the items on there fall into government code that allows us to get rid of these documents after 2 years. Now, it's been our goal, and we have been working diligently to get as many documents scanned and online and in an electronic format as we possibly can. I believe that most of our documents at this point go back to 2008 as being scanned. What we have found is that when items that are older than that have been requested, say a department is looking for backup material on an item that was in an agenda packet previous to that time, when we go to pull the packet, what the specific things they're looking for don't seem to be there. They're looking for items that aren't helping them. What we have isn't what's helping them. They already have access to it, have it in their files, or whatever. Part of the other concern is that in an effort to find cost savings, as every department is doing right now, since the Board Supervisors unit was previously in the clerk recorder's office, we shared storage space with the recorders, the clerk, and the elections department at the Colombo building. Since I am no longer in that office, I do need to have an escort to go to the Colombo building to access any old documents. And so that requires not only my time to go off-site to go through boxes and boxes of documents, but it also requires an escort from that department and their hourly rate.
Diane, when you were in that department, did you also need an escort?
I did.
Because of the elections?
Because of the elections equipment that was housed there. It was a little easier at that point because I was in that office, but I don't have access to it now as I didn't before. And it is a little more involved to coordinate time to go there. So we are hoping that in an effort to reduce the amount of storage that we have, that we would not have to pay to participate in using that space as well, which we did not before. And it's estimated by the elections department that the Board of Supervisors portion of the rent for that space would be approximately $600 per month.
And I would just point out that this is a much broader issue. We have storage all over the county, and we're storing records all over the county beyond the legal requirement to store them in paper form. So this is the first of a broader effort to look again more broadly at what we're paying to store and whether we need to store that, since many of our records are now being digitized and maintained in electronic format.
And then I'd just like to add also that none of the documents that are currently digitized would be deleted. We have agenda packets, we have resolutions, ordinances, all kinds of documents that are available on the website for staff and public review and access. And that will continue to be there. And we're hoping that what we will be able to do is continue to add to that as much as we can. Like we only have minutes that are available as far back as
Was it in the 90s or 80s?
In the 90s.
In the 90s, 1991.
Get those scanned as well. And that's a time issue, just being able to have the time to be able to get those on the web or accessible.
Dan, I'm going to look something up for 2004. a resolution, but the agendas only went back to 2006, are we going to go back? Because if I could have found the agenda item, it would have been easier for me to find the resolution, except what I was taught this morning.
No, I don't believe so, because
the minutes...
Again, that will be a matter of, if we had had the time at this point to scan those old packets, which we'll try to do if the schedule is implemented, we'll try to get as much of the old packets on there as we can. However, the minutes would include, you'd be able to do a search of the minutes. And then we're also hoping that as part of the electronic agenda management system that was approved at final budget, they will bring our electronic documents forward, and I think might be in a little bit easier format to search.
Okay. Yeah. Having trouble finding the item.
Right. It has been a work in progress over the last year or two. We didn't have those documents available scanned or for the public. They had to be requested of the office. And we've really made some great strides in getting a lot of information on the website and available in a digital format. As with any kind of a process like that, it is a work in progress. We're trying to find ways to make things better, to make it more easily accessible, and to figure out what's not working and try to fix that as well.
I have a couple questions. So this is a government code in regards to the length of how long you keep something. Okay, and what you're proposing here is pretty much following that government code. There's no variances.
The variances that we did include kept things longer. So even with, I believe, with minutes and actual resolution documents, the government code only requires 2 years. And I think that those are important documents to have.
Okay.
And so in our discussions, we decided it was better to keep those for a longer period of time than to get rid of them.
So what I see here, like on audio recordings, become a permanent record, not to be destroyed.
Government code requires 30 days.
Okay.
And so we will be keeping those permanently. And the way that the retention schedule is written, we will be keeping those documents on those files, the CDs and the cassette tapes that we have. We keep those on site because we have a more climate-controlled environment here than at a storage facility other than Colombo. We don't keep those there either.
Okay. So easements are kept at, is a permanent record?
Mm-hmm.
Permanent?
Yes.
Like you mentioned, the minutes of the Board of Supervisor meetings, and the ordinances, the policies and procedures, the resolutions, and the video, I guess video and audio recording are kept as permanent records, not to be destroyed.
Yes.
Okay. So can you tell me, I see all of this work kind of generated at the board level. Are there other policies, and maybe Lori might answer this one, for other departments to maintain?
There are
I'm trying
legal,
to think of something, but...
Yeah, there are legal requirements that deal with records throughout the county. Again, this is the first of what we hope are a number of steps that are taken, because we do have other departments that also are keeping records both in electronic and paper format, and some more than they need to.
So this is like the first step of an official policy adoption, and then the goal is for other county departments to be able to maintain that.
That is the goal, yes.
Okay, all right. We had an email sent to us, all of us, in regards to questions clarifying this policy, and I know it was sent over the weekend and the holiday and such, so can you address some of those questions with that? Maybe acknowledge the email person asking?
Sure. The email came from Colleen Platt from mybellsprings.com, and the questions are not very long, so I'm just going to go ahead and read them for those who have not seen it. let's see, in the second paragraph it says regarding old hard copy documents stored off-site, the rare occasion when a file is requested, but the next paragraph says current requested documents require a trip to the off-site location averaging once per week. This is confusing. Can you clarify this? How often are documents stored off-site requested? And I would say the request average about once per week. Some weeks there's more, some weeks there's less, but it is about a once a week
Request.
A lot of times we can now say with older packets or older documents, those are available on the website and we can refer to those. So I think that's been helpful. The next question is, where is the off-site location for document storage that can cost $600 a month? Where is the on-site location? Like I said, our off-site location is currently the Colombo building, and on-site would be in the office, so allowing for office space at this point. I don't know if there would be other on-site locations that would be available for storage. I know that the county is looking at the plan for the use of this space, what departments can be where, what's the best use of space. So I am hesitant to say, oh, another department's going to have room for us.
Right.
So,
Diane, on that one, I would just add more broadly, I think I signed 5 or 6 rental agreements for storage space just last week, ranging in price from $250 to $500. So we use space all over the county in storage facilities to store records.
For all kinds of records.
For all kinds of records. And I, just one more thing. I know from our staff, too, that goes out to access records for the CAO's office, often they're sent to storage in not the best order, and so when you go out to find something, it's oftentimes an adventure, and you may or may not locate what you're looking for. So it's almost like a collector. You get to the point where you have too much, and you can't find what you need when you need it.
Right.
Question number 3 says, in the retention schedule under agenda and agenda packets, on-site retention is listed as none. What does this mean? No hard copies at all of agendas and packets will be available in your office if your office is the on-site location. Generally, we do keep current agenda packets for like the current fiscal year because we do sometimes have to refer back to them, but I'm finding that is less and less with having the agendas be available digitally. Number 4, board packets and agendas currently posted on the county's website back to 2008 and 2006. Will these be deleted if they are more than 2 years old? No, they will not be deleted. We will keep, our goal is to get them in an electronic format and make them accessible. The same with audio recordings. It says they're currently posted on the website, assuming this is the external website referred to throughout the extension schedule. Why does it say no and they're available? And that is because we would keep those audio and video files here. They would be here at General Center. Same question for the video, so that's the same answer. Minutes are listed as permanent. Will these minutes be posted online, which go back to 1993, and will older hard copies of the minutes predate 1993 electronic files be kept and stored permanently, and they will continue to be available online. And like I said, we are in the process of trying to go further back and get the minutes posted. So like in the instance where you were looking for something, that would be available for you. And then another question was, if people are asking to see files, it seems they ought to be able to do so. And it also seems that somehow as part of the historical record of the county, it should be maintained as long as possible. In my experience, like I said earlier, when packets have been agenda packets, which is really a large bulk of our storage at this point, when they've been requested, it's to look for a certain agreement or an addendum to something or a copy of the signed resolution or whatever that is, and or what the notes were from the department on that item. And what we're finding is that the specifics that are being looked for aren't what was in the agenda packet anyway. There was something subsequently added or whatever. And so we're just finding that keeping those documents and then having to search through the boxes and boxes and boxes of documents because we've never had a retention schedule, that it just is, it's very time consuming, it's very cumbersome, and in a lot of cases not very fruitful.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? Are there any comments from the public on this item?
Joe Kelly. Over the weekend, I was taking a gander at some things, trying to find some information. I'm concerned about records going back to the 1980s. Documents older than those required, or those documents older than those going to be required be retained if you still have them, if they're not humidified by now and basically parchment. Will these documents be transferred to disk? If so, what verification process of the complete information transfer will be used? I ask that because I know under the concept of the permanent audio cassette tapes that in the past, the tapes, the recording devices in the past have been bad. And I have a three-sided tape, one two-sided tape and one side on a second tape. The second side of the first tape is so how do you deal with that? If I hadn't had a court reporter, I wouldn't know what was going on in an assessment. I'm sorry, Board of Equalization. Ooh, the Board of Supervisors acting as. So this is what we need, a verification process, and then in that verification process you need to be able to distinguish, because somebody might come in and say, well, you guys did something and destroyed the tape, because they may never have heard the tape, may never have ordered the tape. So I would say there needs to be a protection system in here for the government. Why should information transfer to disk take place? Example, was Fox versus Fresno County Appellate Court decision ever discussed publicly by the Board of Supervisors in 1985? How was it brought into the public's information arena? If it wasn't for County Counsel's office, I never would have known about it. How much discussion by the Board of Supervisors was transparently done on the 1982-1985 general plan lawsuits where Highway 4 is supposed to be a 4-lane road? If it hadn't come up in something else just a while back, I never would have known about that either, because we had very hushed-mouthed supervisors at the time. What other historical information that current residents and members of the Board of Supervisors know nothing of but may be important? 2 years required. I have to go back what I said earlier when I made a comment about start and go forward. Now I see why elected officials sit down first day and go forward only. Thank you.
Mr. Kelly, any other comments on this agenda item?
Just a quick question. You want me to identify myself again? Peter
Please.
Race, Jenny Lynn, Tea Partier. Can you hear me now? Good, thank you. A couple of years ago, I think when Mr. Spellman came in, one of the elected officials left her office, and there was a discussion right afterward. There's a number of documentation of that office was shredded and got rid of. Now, it wasn't the Board of Supervisors. Let's get it clear. Those documents were shredded and destroyed. If I was suspicious, somebody went through a whole bunch of extra work for controllers to destroy documents. Now, maybe it was totally innocent. But unfortunately, we will never know, will we? The other thing is that, and it's basically a question, I know Dennis doesn't work for me, but if documentation, electric or printed version of it, that's subject to the Freedom of Information Act, how long do you have supposed to hold on to it? Let's say somebody has a nice $2,000 computer, which is subject to the Freedom of Information Act, so your cell phones, etc. How long are you supposed to maintain it? Or is it just for the period of time? Or is it just when it's convenient to make it disappear. That would be nice to know. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so to start off with Mr. Kelly's comments, we're not going to be converting audio. We're going to be keeping whatever those are, and that's what we're keeping in the right now they're housed in the vault. We'll be keeping those in an area where we will maintain them. I want to say as long as possible. I don't know about humidification. I don't know about those costs or what's involved in that. As far as the Fox case that you mentioned, I'm not familiar with that, so I really couldn't give you a very good answer if I'm not familiar with it. As far as your question about general plan information, and it kind of dovetails into Rachel's comments about documents that are shredded from the department. This is what's included in the retention schedule that's proposed today is only for the documents of the Board of Supervisors. Other departments may be governed by other parts of government code that requires them to keep things for different amounts of time. We're just talking about the parts of it that are the Board of Supervisors documents. Kind of with the audio and with the retention and humidification, the integrity of the hard copies, depending on where your storage is, the rubber bands disintegrate, the paper starts to definitely become parchment, and ink stains, and all those kinds of things happen. And so what we're hoping to do is not document that aren't good anyway. Does that make sense? If you can't read it, it's kind of hard to keep it and to use it as a record. And then lastly, on the Freedom of Information Act, for public records requests, if any government agency doesn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you don't have the document, you can't make a document, you can't produce a document for it. So government code, I would think...
Let me answer that. First of all, the Freedom of Information Act only applies to federal agencies. So we're talking about the California Public Records Act. And the California Public Records Act has no time limit within it. You'll find most of the time limitations in the government code, starting at 26,200 through 26,230. There are different time limits for different types of documents. Litigation documents, you don't have to keep them after the litigation is done. So when you make a Public Records Act request, you're only entitled to what the county currently has on file, and as long as the county's in compliance with all the different statutes, you get what is available. With respect to Fox, the case Fox, pretty much all case law plus California state law is online now. We don't update our books. We don't use our books. We go online. So if you want to research an issue, I would suggest you go online and research it. The law library doesn't update many of their books anymore either. So even the courts and the law libraries and regular libraries are going online. And I suspect at some point there won't be any documents anymore. It'll all be digitized. So wave of the future.
Thank you. No more public comments. I'm going to bring it back to the board. Mr. Spellman, you had some comments.
Just one brief one. I was excited to see this because, I know that there are a number of off-site locations that we use to store documents, and as someone alluded to earlier, they're probably not in the best condition. If you actually try to retrieve them and use them for some official documentation, you'd probably find that they're blurred or compromised in some way that wouldn't really be sufficient for a legal proceeding, I would imagine. And other CAO said, she signed several of these contracts just this last week for these things. And, after meeting with the board members at the Rancho Calaveras Property Owners Association in the clubhouse, which is kind of a gathering place for people in my district that don't have a community center officially for that area, they would be more than willing to allow the county to develop a branch library inside their facility for about $200 a month plus some internet access, costs. And so I'm looking at this going, hey, we could save $600 a month right here. That is more to pay for, a library location for my district. So those kind of things are exciting to me. As the administration and other offices are going through, after these years of cuts and sharpening our pencils, we're still going through with the fine-tooth comb on things, and I think that you'll see a number of these things continue to come to the board for changes, which I think are good in a cost-saving way. There are certainly things that happened at this very day that there are files available within the last 36 months that I've been on the Board of Supervisors that I think would be a smoking gun for issues that don't seem to be dealt with. So I don't know how any old records that are hardly legible, most likely, are going to be proven relevant for any court cases that might be forthcoming. The one I'd like to see most is documentation alluding to, people that have retired from the county have alluded to that there are documents that exist, and I haven't been able to expunge those so far, that say that the original documents that were set in place to procure the land and the funding to construct the Rock Creek landfill back in the 1980s, that $150 per parcel fee was only meant to have a 20-year sunset. That per parcel fee of $150 was only meant to be for 20 years to pay for procurement of the property, procurement of the assets to be placed on the property, the MRF station, the tractors, all the capital assets that you need to get it up and running. But then once it was up and running, after that 20-year sunset window, that it was supposed to go back to like everybody else does, where you pay a gate fee. When you go through, if you take something to the dump, you pay a gate fee. And instead of everybody in the county getting it in a short, $150 every year on their taxes. Because I definitely don't make enough trips to the dump in a year to quantify $150. And we're looking to raise that, by the way, because if we have a shortfall in that, and that'll be coming to the board in the next couple of years, it's going to be a significant amount of money in the millions of dollars that we're short. So they're looking to raise it from $150 to $200 on your parcel fee, just FYI.
Spellman, could you
So if you know
get
anybody
back
that could,
to the item, please?
that could find those documents, fish those out somehow before they get shredded, that'd be great.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Is there a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion.
A motion by Supervisor Spellman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Ponte. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moves on a 5-0 vote of the board. Thank you. I move to item 7. Item to amend the Calaveras Council of Governments Joint Powers Agreement to clarify the term of citizen members and flexibility in meeting dates, times, and locations. And Ms. Norton, are you taking the lead on this?
I think there are 2 members on the call.
Debbie or Cliff?
We have Melissa here. I'll let. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll let the all-knowing Melissa do it.
Thank you very much, Melissa Eads, Executive Director with the Calaveras Council of Governments. We have this item before you, and I'd like to thank you for your consideration of the amendment to our Joint Powers Agreement. The changes were received and accepted by the Calaveras Council of Governments at their November board meeting. The changes as identified are on page 5 and 7 of the JPA. And they're intended to allow flexibility for the Calaveras Council of Governments within our meeting schedule, should it be necessary to hold special meetings or perhaps closed session meetings before our regular COG board meetings, and also to prevent, as we have the specific circumstance this December, the 100% turnover of our public members that are appointed by our member agencies on the Calaveras Council of Governments board. So unless there's any questions, I'd like to turn the item over to you for your consideration and discussion.
I have it on page 8. Is there's something on page 7 that's
Oh, I'm sorry.
online.
Page 5 is
I'm sorry,
I
maybe
have
5 and 8.
but I don't have. Is it page 8?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So just to reaffirm what Melissa had mentioned is we recognize during the COG, looking at JP and other documents, that there are 3 public members that are appointed to COG, and right now it's on an annual basis, and their terms expire all at the same time. So we're trying to stagger these terms so that we don't have a fresh new turnover of public members, because it takes some time to bring people up to speed in this sort of thing. It also becomes, somewhat costly to be able to advertise and go through the process of appointing these members. So our goal is to have several serve 2-year terms and stagger or actually all 3 public members to serve 2-year terms, but stagger so that we at least have a supermajority of the board in place at all times. So that was really the key factor of changing just this portion of the JPA. The other was to give a little bit of flexibility in regards to holding closed sessions as needed or special meetings as needed. The JPA was very specific about a meeting time, and we needed a little bit more flexibility. And we as a COG board could not make that decision ourselves because we needed the JPA and to conform with what the member agencies was asking us to do. So those are, what I consider to be two changes to this JPA, and ask for your support of that. And Cliff and I are on the same page, and if you want to add anything to that.
No need, said it good.
I did have a couple of questions, and Melissa clarified one of them for me. The one on removing a citizen member by a majority vote of the member agency. That becomes very emotionally charged and can be very contentious. And I was just wondering if you considered doing it such as we've done for some other board-appointed agencies, or board-appointed groups, that would be like if they missed 3 meetings or more unexcused meetings, they would be removed, versus the member agencies removing a person.
I think from my perspective, with that question, I'd like to take a look at our policies and procedures. And I think one of the things that we've learned from the JPA amendment that occurred February 2011 is the need to keep the JPA as broad as possible, allowing the Council of Governments the flexibility and incorporate those suggestions into our policies and procedures manual. So I can take a look at that and see if we specify that process more specifically and what some of the expectations for conduct may be that the Council may consider in terms of termination.
So what you're saying is your policies and procedures then would be a subset of this.
Correct.
So if your policies and procedures said they missed 3 meetings in a year unexcused, then you would bring that to the COG board, and the COG board would then vote to remove it. Or they did whatever other it is, continual conflict of interest, then you would bring it would then go to the COG board, and then they would vote to remove the person.
Correct.
Is that how I understand it?
Correct. And I think our goal is to keep this as broad as possible so it allows the Council of Governments to work within this framework. The policies and procedures manual are more specific. We get into the process for appointment. We can certainly get into the process for termination as well.
I mean, just having been through that some of the time, it becomes drama on the part of the sitting members. It is just trying to avoid that possibility.
Very good.
Thank
And
you.
that is a discussion that I can bring back to the Council of Governments.
Thank you. That's all. Are there any questions from the board on this JPA? Yes. 2 proposed changes? Yes, go.
Looking through this, I applaud you for making some changes and recommendations. One of the things that I found needing or found wanting in this particular document is on page 4 under section C, and then you have subsection 2, so it's section C, number 2, under citizen member selection.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the drama that Rita was talking about in full force happened when there was a highly publicized issue over over what was deemed as Tryon case and the cause of participation in that, as well as other entities. It says here in Section 2, and then A2, so it's even more bullet points down, so it's on the top of page 5 actually. It says, there shall not be 2 citizen members from the same supervisorial district or the City of Angels serving on the COG at the same time unless approved by the members of the agency's governing body. I don't think they should be able to, the governing body or whatever should be able to approve that anyways. Yeah, and I'm going to take it a step further. The reason why this is written like that is because you automatically, for those people that may not be aware of how this works, and I know you do, so bear with me for a second. See, we're in San Joaquin County, and the law says that you have to have two city representatives. So in the San Joaquin COG, you may have a city representative from Lodi and a city representative from Antigua. So that's 2 separate cities, but they're city representatives for the county COG. Well, we only have one incorporated city in Calaveras County. So because of that, they automatically have 2 seats on a 7-member panel. Okay, then when you take into account that we also have so if they were to allow 2 citizen members from the City of Angels, then that would be 2 city people from the elected city council mayor, and then 2 citizen members, which could be 4, which would be a majority vote on a 7-member panel, which would be inappropriate. And that's why this is written as such, and this hasn't changed. This has been in prior to this document. However, there needs to be an update on, and that's what I'm going towards here, is that in the event that the supervisor, this in this case would be Ms. Ponton. I didn't bring this up because when these guys just came in new, I didn't want to cause any waves. I let it just, deal with it when we get to it. But this was a big thing when Tryon was in, because Tryon was on there as a county representative for the Board of Supervisors. Then you had 2 Angels City Council people, and you had citizen members from Angels on there. So you had a majority of the 7-member board that were basically, representing Angels. So I'm not saying that they all functioned in that way or that they were all hyper-focused on Angels' needs. It just creates a situation where it's not above reproach, and it should be taken into consideration. So my suggestion would be to change the wording on this so that it should say something along the lines of that there should not be any citizen members from the City of Angels if the supervisorial representative from the county happens to also represent Angels Camp in their district. Because now we have Ponty, she's on the COG. She's also, Angels Camp is in her district. And then you have 2 City of Angels people. So if you even had 1 City of Angels Citizen Committee representative, you'd have a 4th Angels Camp person there. And therefore it leads to the ideology or speculation on the part of other people in the county that this is a stacked deck in favor of Angels Camp, which is an ongoing theme in my area of the county.
Well, it can be looked at as if 3-member communities all live in the Valley Springs district, and that supervisor represents Valley Springs.
Well, that's why it says that you can't have more than 2 citizen members per supervisorial district.
I'm missing that.
Well, it says you shall not have
2 citizen members from the same supervisor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I might also clarify for the board and then also for the city council, the JPA is meant to provide for myself and the Council of Governments your expectations as member agencies and communicating those expectations for me as the executive director. Those appointments are control that you have as the Board of Supervisors as to who you would like to elect. So therefore, the Council of Governments would not want to see themselves in a position of having to legislate or create rules whereby you have to operate. The expectation is that there are rules and expectations where we operate. So I think that would be my...
people to be just a little more clarity and transparency. And obviously somebody at some point in the past has taken the time to clarify that there shouldn't be more than 2 citizen members in any supervisorial district for this very reason. So I think it only stands to reason that if the supervisor that's representing the county also represents the City of Angels, that there shouldn't be even one citizen member from the City of Angels, because that would represent a four-person majority representation. So, it just, and again, I'm not saying I'm not implicating anyone. I'm just saying as a potential, it just passed the sniff test. If you have 4 people on a 7-member board that are representing or living in the City of Angels. So I'm just asking that this subsection 2, where it talks about citizen members, be adjusted to recognize that it's inappropriate or that it's just best practice, not for someone of the citizen representation to be on that COG board if the supervisor. Now next year, Debbie may, Supervisor Ponte may say, hey, you know what, I've got COG dialed in. I'm ready to do something else. And they may shift the clip to somebody else for COG. And then it won't be an issue. But I think whenever you've got the potential for 4 votes, and to have a majority of votes represented by one small community like that, it just leads to speculation. And, we know how things run. So
I would agree with those comments, and I think, this document is for COG to be able to administer. And I think really, those citizen applications come before this board, correct?
The citizens do come before the Calaveras Council of Governments.
It's the council.
And so if there was anything that needed consideration by the Board of Supervisors in the City of Angels, for example, the representation across supervisorial districts, that would need to come to the Board of Supervisors for approval. But I would just point out the member selection, because there's different criteria in terms of COG membership. So we have the member selection, which all of you do at the beginning of every year in January. Then we have the citizen member selection. And so the member selection for the supervisors and the city council is 100% within the purview of this board. So we don't legislate the requirements for your appointment as supervisor or city councilman to the COG board. The citizen member is an open process where we recruit. We do it every 2 years. The positions are 2-year terms. And then only if there is a representative of that citizen member that represents the majority, as Supervisor Spellman is saying, from one supervisorial district or perhaps the city, would that come back for approval by the board and the City of Angels Camp.
Okay, so I happen to agree with Darren on this, and I feel that we probably should have a discussion around it and come up maybe with some language that we can all agree on. So.
Very good, because the item would also need to be supported and approved by the City of Angels Camp as well.
So we can approve at what is put before us today, and that item can go back before the COG for discussion. Because
well, it's the authority and the responsibility. The COG is not a signature to this item, this JPA.
No, but the COG should be discussing it and then come back to the board and city council. Yeah, we don't have.
Well,
we can approve with the exception, except for that. Yeah.
Well, I guess having been a former COG member, I've never seen. I understand what Supervisor Spellman's saying. I have found the COG to really look at things on a holistic manner, and when the items come before them, I never see them be chauvinistic in their approach to how they vote. They look at all the so that would the other way to say is you never have a supervisor from District 4 on the COG board, and I don't know that we want to say that.
I think it's appropriate for a supervisor, actually probably more appropriate than any supervisor for District 4 to be on the COG, because that really is, as much as I don't want to admit it, because I like my part of the county just as equally well as everybody else, That really is the crossroads right there, going right through Angels. So in the COG is their mandate is all about transportation. So if we're talking about transportation issues and connectivity and those type of things, I think it's in the best interest actually of the county for Debbie or whoever's in her position as supervisor for that district to be on the COG. I just think that it has been a problem in the past, and it'll continue to be one of the conspiracy theories or whatever you want to say, whether it's real or not.
Right.
If there's a citizen
Melissa,
member.
is there anything about holding this up or waiting?
Well, we would like to move forward with the appointment of the citizen members in December, and then we would like to address the term issue at that point. So that's why we're hoping to have this.
Our representatives on the COG, what it is, their preferences
Yeah,
today?
I would personally, I'd like to see us approve what's on the agenda today, because this has been in the process for about 3-4 months. We need our member agency, the City of Angels, to approve as well, so that we can move ahead with our 3-member selection process. And I would be more than happy, and I know Cliff too, to bring back to the COG board a discussion about the membership in regards to what Supervisor Spellman has mentioned, so that we could work it there and then talk with our member agency, the City of Angels Camp, in regards to that change in the JPA. So I kind of see it as a 2-step process, because I certainly don't want to prolong our membership of the 3 members.
About that. I know one of the members is from District 2, but are the other ones both from Angels area, or is that going to be a problem with changing it after you appoint those two?
Their membership is up, so we don't know who's going to be applying.
Okay.
So
right now there are 4 members that live in Angels.
Right, and I understand that they're going to be re-upping, right?
No, there's.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure that there are 4 members on the COG board from the City of Angels right now.
There is.
We do have diverse representation of the public members at this point. Valley Springs, District 2, and then, I'm sorry, Mr. Hudson, you're correct, Copperopolis would be the District 4. So then we do have 2 Angels Camp, the Copperopolis area, and then 1 representative from the supervisorial district. So, excuse me, Supervisor Hudson, you're correct.
Okay.
So the 3 public members
And for the
are
record, I don't live in the City of Angels Camp.
Yeah, that's fine. So,
All right. Are there any other questions or comments?
I just want to know, I mean, if we pass this today with this language without any corrections made to it, what recourse do we have to ask for it to be amended later? I mean,
The
can't,
JPA
right?
agreement can go back at any time.
we still can.
absolutely. The COG can discuss this item at their meeting in December with the approved changes that we've brought forward. And also unitarily, the Board of Supervisors can begin these negotiations and discussions independent of the COG with the City of Angels. You can vote and approve those changes, and then the COG basically receives the JPA. We're not signatory to the JPA. That I'm sure we can do it in partnership, as Supervisor Pani is recommending, with approval of this item today, contingent upon further discussion on those items. I would be happy to carry that forward to the COG board and then also the City of Angels Camp for discussion.
as long as you guys can say satisfactorily that we can bring this back, to be changed, the language, because this is me trying to substantiate my belief that it's integral for you to be on there. Believe me, people down in Rancho are like, that's a 3-legged dog, she's the mayor of Angels. She's on there, and they're on, that's what they say. And so I'm trying to confirm my position, which I've stated today, which is that Angels Camp is integral. I think that you should be on there, but
I don't have
to defeat that, you
right.
get rid of that citizen member.
I think, I can't talk about the past. I can tell you that the current COG board is wanting to have a very well-rounded representation of our community. The member recruitment has been most challenging at times for the COG. So that is our goal, is to get that membership recruitment beefed up so that we do get a better representation of people applying to the board. And I think we can facilitate that. And I think it can be a healthy discussion as well as a good resolution to make sure that we are well represented on this COG board.
So,
We meaning all areas of the county
Right, I
are
just
well
want to squelch
represented.
any
make a little comment on that? I went in there with the same attitude, huh? And so I felt that we were not getting our true representation for District 1, District 2, and District 5. And so, because all the money was funneling that way. And so...
I actually think two's done a really good job. Actually, he's done very well. So, I mean, that's my impression. But Debbie has been extremely perfectly balanced on the COG as far as making sure that everything is represented well throughout the whole county. She has that whole county outlook in it, and so that sure made it a lot easier on me because I felt like I was going to get my butt kicked over there.
Well, and I just think it's important that all these boards are a good representation of our county. So I don't have a problem facilitating a discussion and encouraging, a change to this fact because I think it's important. It's healthy for the board.
I think so too. Because these things live on beyond our tenure.
I agree. And I just want to reiterate on Supervisor Pawney's point that I do appreciate the flexibility that this affords in terms of bringing back the 2 citizen members should there be a conflict or should the representation be anything other than your expectations to both the Board of Supervisors and the City of Angels, because recruitment for these citizen members is difficult. So we've had reoccurring members staying on the board for multiple years. Right now, I don't have enough applications to fill the 3 positions that I currently have. And in the past, that's been a problem, is recruiting volunteers to serve. And so for that reason, I do appreciate that flexibility to bring it back to you for your consideration, because those holes in the board would definitely affect our ability to do business.
Thank you. Just, any public comments on this item?
David Tuno, Rancho Calaveras. A couple of corrections here. This issue isn't about, and I'm sure Ms. Pawney would agree, isn't about the job that she's doing on the COG, Mr. Edson. It's not about that. And it's not about, Ms. Callaway, board members for COG acting globally in the interest of the county as a whole. There's nothing about sitting on that board that changes a person's mentality. It doesn't inure in them a sense of global responsibility. So it's not about people. It's about a system. It's about a setup that protects us from the possibility of an imbalance in the future. And I think that's why Mr. Spellman brought it up. But it doesn't quite go far enough because, again, personalities aside, whoever sits on the board on COG from District 4, even if they don't live in Angels, they certainly know where the votes come from in District 4. So you have the potential for this imbalance that Mr. Spellman brought up, regardless of whether or not the supervisor from 4 lives in Angels. And as far as the transportation issues, yes, there's more people that live in Angels, and Angels has a big, there are stakeholders on those issues, but we're all paying for it. So one of the problems that government has in general, you can look at our state as an example, is that the people in the big metropolitan areas dominate the decisions for the entire state. And we in Calaveras County are kind of victimized by that. So here you have a microcosm of that same kind of formula where you have certainly the potential for a huge imbalance in representation on this board from a particular district. Again, personalities aside, it can happen. So whatever you do here, paramount in your decision has to be protecting the citizens against that kind of imbalance, so that you have fairness built into the system, representation spread built into the system, since we are all paying the bills, and we don't want to have a particular zone dominate decisions that affect everybody else.
So, Are you saying that, for me, it seems like there's already a system of balances and checks and balances set up here because ultimately we're part of this JPA as a board. So if we see that it's being unfair, we can step in as a board and say, hey, this isn't working. We gotta change this up. So there's already a built-in system here for checks and balances. So I don't really see a problem. We have really good COG leadership, both in the staff and on the board. It seems to be working. So I think it's something that's being taken from the past, or maybe it wasn't working because you did have different personalities involved, and you're bringing it into the future, but it's no longer an issue before us today.
Are you saying it's no longer an issue because the people that you have in place are doing a great job?
I'm saying that, and the system is set up, just part of democracy, is a checks and balances here. The board wasn't working very well, so now we have new board members. The COG, if it wasn't working well, the new board members would address it. So I don't think I think you're making an issue out of something that's not really an issue.
Well, are you saying that whoever serves from this board on COG...
What I'm saying is I trust the people, Debbie is going to be fair, and Paul Stein is going to be fair in approaching the entire county when these projects come forward. And if they're not fair, then, and it's obvious that they're being unfair, then we can step in as a board already and make the changes necessary. So I think there is no issue here. I think it's something that used to be an issue, but is no longer an issue.
You're saying
I don't mind going forward with Darren's proposal and looking at it, but I really don't think there's a huge issue.
Okay. First, you're again talking about personalities that are in place here and now.
Well, not only personalities, but people.
People. We're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
People, personalities, people. The attitudes of people, their skills and their
integrity, too.
Their integrity,
Yeah.
fine. That's the word. People. But it's still people in place now. And what I'm talking about is not...
I know you're talking about the system.
I'm talking about the system.
The people in the system work together to form what we have. And so if one of them isn't working, we fix it. And we have the overall system in place already to deal with it, i.e. the Board of Supervisors and the JPA, where we can step in and fix it. Right now, it's working fine. Maybe, we look at what Darren's proposed here and we tinker it. But we don't need to really make it a huge issue. I think it's somewhat being blown out of proportion at this point as an issue.
Okay. Well, my position is set the people aside, set everybody aside, and just look at the system. Does it have the potential to create problems, to create an imbalance? If it does, then you need to look at it. And I don't think that you can say, gee, it's working fine now, why bother?
Well, it is. I mean, there's a lot of problems that we have to deal with at this county. I mean, why should we try to be fixing something that isn't broken?
So the way I see it is, Mr. Tuno, is that you're actually agreeing with the process that we're going to take, because we're going to go in and look at this. We're going to go ahead and move on this with the caveat that we're going to come back and we're going to take a look at what Mr. Spellman was talking about, and then we're going to possibly adjust that. And it's just all, going forward, moving forward, and tweaking what works good, but maybe we can refine it a little better, make it better for the future, because what worked in the past, maybe not so well, we adjusted, it works better now, and maybe there's still a little bit, and we're going to adjust it, make it work better for the future.
Fine.
That's kind of what you're talking about.
I think we're all agreeing here. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Yeah, we're violently agreeing with one another.
I'm not violently.
We're very peaceful.
Yeah. We're famous for violence here, aren't we?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tuno.
There's a look on your faces. I know who would like to react violently. I'm pure-raised gentleman. One of my questions was already answered. I like to... It's not just a question what is, let's say, not appropriate, but sometimes it's a question of what appearance of not appropriate. Now, up to now, I'm not going to complain about anybody or the COG. The principle of the COG is kind of I don't like because it's just another layer of bureaucracy and but maybe it's a necessity. But I would very to make it credibility, grand jury made a suggestions, rotation of who's on this organization, because that will be a wider range of knowledge, okay? And most of it you took care of. There's a couple items that you prefer to ignore the grand jury's suggestion you do. And it's not always the actual problem, but the appearance of the problem. The actual problem will be determined in the court. The appearance of the problem going to be determined on the street. And it's not just COG, but there's other agencies, county-wise agency, that might be, oh, it's legal. But you talk to people on the street, that's not kosher. But you're stuck with this thing till we can change it. Have a rotation, and make sure you don't give the appearance of conflict of interest. That's all I'm suggesting. It's not knocking anybody, but that's Spellman said, Debbie, you said that, and Dave said it, okay? Make sure that's not going to be the appearance. If it's actually working like fantastic, great. But be aware that sometime the old book that was published by the taxpayer, Go Along to Get Along, it's outdated, folks. It's outdated. Go along. You don't each get elected to go along. The only group that you have to go along with is your constituents. We put you in, we can take you out. Get a reality check. And if you give the appearance it's not too kosher, you're going to be out. So I'm glad you took this subject matter up. I want to compliment you. You guys almost been saints. But thank you for doing it. This must be a great pleasure. Pleasantries every time. But make sure you don't give the appearance. Thank you.
Joe Kelly, you know it's coming. What's shall mean when it says shall not? I want to know. The other thing is the people, you took care of the problem? No, actually the voters took care of the problem. There's 2 new people sitting on this board that the problem might have been their predecessors. And your predecessor isn't here any longer either. That might have been part of a problem, even though he may not have been on COG. I agree with Peter. I agree with Mr. Tuno. And I would certainly like the idea of rotation. And thank you, Mr. Spellman, for bringing it up again. I think this is, how many times you brought this up? Multiple. Now you have a voice in it. Why? Because the voter made the change of the board. Thank you.
And it fell on deaf ears in years past.
Any other public comments on this item? I'll bring it back to the board. Do the COG representatives have any comments they wish to make? Or
I would just say I would, like to bring this back to the COG board in regards to the items that were mentioned in section 2. Is it 2A?
2A.
For some further discussion and review and consideration for change to be brought back to the member agencies.
And the item before us?
Item before us, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Supervisor Ponte, a second by Supervisor Edson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote. Thank you. I'd like to move to item 8, adopt a resolution approving the countywide road impact mitigation fee annual report.
Good morning. Deborah Mullen from Public Works. These are the annual maintenance processes for the road impact mitigation fee program. 2 public hearings. The first one to approve the annual report, the project list, and the priority project list. And then following this, we'll address the inflation increase in the fee itself. And if you like, I'm going to do a little brief summary of what it is, how it came to be, where we are now, why we're not farther along.
Okay, that might be a good idea, Ms. Mullen. Could you please
Okay.
do that?
The RIM fee is a funding mechanism to enable new development to pay for its fair share of the cost of transportation projects to accommodate the development. Back in 1984, the county had a general plan that allowed unlimited growth, but the circulation element had no mechanism for working with that growth and supplying the transportation improvements needed. So the concerned citizens of Calaveras brought suit against the county, and they won that suit because of the inconsistency in the general plan. 86, the general plan was updated, and now there was still unlimited growth, but now there was an impact fee, provisions for an impact fee, but the fee itself was not implemented. And years went by, work began in 1999, and numerous meetings and different ideas for lists were put forward. And it wasn't until, the citizens brought suit again that the county got on it and put it together. The Council of Governments hired a consulting firm, to put together the Nexus study, which was to show the relationship between the proposed fee and the improvements needed. The Economic and Planning Systems did that study with traffic demand models supplied by Fair and Pierce. So the RIM fee ordinance was enacted in 2004, and then all the various implementing resolutions were passed by the board that time. So the Nexus study, the main goal was to show the relationship between the use of the fees and the type of development, the need for facilities and the type of projects, and the amount of the fees and the portion of the facility attributed to development. And it did that, and after numerous discussions, the project list was based on 3 different criteria. It was the projected traffic volumes for 2025. The road on the project had to connect major communities or provide parallel capacity for the major routes, and it had to demonstrate a need to upgrade a road to current county standards. And the amount of the fee was determined by the forecast development and the cost of those projects. So in the Nexus study, there was mention, but nothing moved forward as far as funding for the rest of the project costs, the project that was from existing development. And they put forward possibilities of gas tax sales, parcel tax, sales tax, or the transit occupancy tax. Never been able to say that. The TOT. In 2009, the board had an independent study done by Government Financial Strategies to see what the likelihood was of additional funding sources for transportation. And they looked at all of those things that were in the Nexus study and kind of dismissed them as not being able to generate enough revenue. But they went forward, but they did more research on a bond measure. And if you recall, that time we took the whole idea on the road and held numerous community meetings and talked to people about transportation issues, public works functions, cost of transportation improvements, and what they would be willing to do. And I think the outcome of those meetings and the survey that was conducted subsequent to that was that people identified serious transportation issues and deficiencies, but they weren't so much willing to pay for it. And that's where we were then, and that's a little bit where we are now as far as this project. We rely on state and federal funding, grant funding, and use the RIM fee as the local match. So the projects were the same projects that were identified during the process leading up to the Nexus study, though they're still the projects on the table. Now, the priority projects ideally, that would be if the RIM program were totally funded, if we had a bond measure and everything was, we had all the money to do all these projects, the priority list would say which of those projects the board wanted to put RIM funds toward in what order. As it is, we don't have anywhere near enough funding for all those projects, but the priority list does give us direction over time of where the board wants to expend resources. These are the projects we want to do. So I'm going to... So that's what those things are. So Nick, back up to the current action today is to accept the annual report, and it shows generally what the status of the funds are in the 12-13 fiscal year. The program collected $190,000. 399, and there was 53,000 in interest. The ending balance of the RIM fund as of the end of June 2013 was $8,074,000. The priority list, we are not recommending any changes from last year. They are the State Route 1226 improvements, Mountain Ranch Road, Murphy's Grade Road, and Wagon Trail project on State Route 4. All these processes are conform to the Government Code Mitigation Fee Act and the County Code, and it's been noticed, and all this information has been available to the public on the county website. So if I left any gaps, I'd be happy to fill in. Dennis, did I leave anything important out?
Questions?
Let me just add one thing, because there was a question asked. And it's anticipated that once the general plan of circulation plan is updated, that we will be doing another Nexus study, because it's also anticipated that it's likely that forecasted circulation may change due to where development's going.
That is an important thing I left out. Thank you.
Thank you.
So is it important to increase that now, the 2.6, or wait for the general plan portion? Oh.
The 2% increase is just based on construction costs. Let me go back and explain since I was there.
That's the next agenda item.
That's
the next agenda item.
Let me just explain how we got to the particular fee that you have now. The Nexus study was as Deborah mentioned, the product of both a traffic engineering firm, Fair and Pierce, and a consultant who specialized in Nexus studies. We also we used an outside consultant during the litigation who actually reviewed the consultants we hired and also testified at trial that we complied with the government code. The board was very concerned at the time, and as you'll note, we actually had to get sued to get the board to adopt the fee, because we had multiple years of hearings. We had a TAC put together at the COG that reviewed this. A bunch of citizens reviewed it. It went between COG and Public Works and COG and Public Works. Ultimately, it went back to COG when it became adopted. Again, the board was very concerned about the amount of the fee and gave numerous direction points to the consultants to lower the fee by changing some of the assumptions. So, for example, there was an assumption direction to the consultant to transfer some of the commercial impact to residential. But for the residential, you wouldn't have traffic generated by the commercial. So we went back and we redid the nexus study to do that. Ultimately, what was adopted is what we litigated, and the fee is designed based on the 3 points that Deborah brought up to basically provide alternate access to state routes that in case of emergency and also between communities. That's why Pool Station Road is on there, Murphy's-Brade Road is on there, the roads up in Sheep Ranch. They're all intended to provide an alternative access if the state route cannot be used for any reason. And the reason why the project was set up that way is because there are other types of fees that we have in this county. We have fees called benefit basin fees. Those are fees that are generated for local improvements directly due to development. There's one down in Valley Springs that provides funds to do improvements related to developments down in Valley Springs. We have a Copperopolis benefit basin fee. Those serve a different purpose than this fee. This is a county-wide fee, and the only way you can have a nexus to a county-wide fee is to provide traffic improvements county-wide. So that is why the consultant and the traffic engineer chose these particular roads. And this is not actually the original road list that was in the nexus study. It was much longer than this. The improvements were, I'd say it's probably about a third of what the original improvements were, and the fee that was generated as a result of that was something, as I recall, $13,000 per dwelling unit, and the board was not comfortable with that at the time. So this particular program and nexus study was a result of probably about 2 years of hearings. So, and the law requires you to have a nexus study to support any changes to the fee. So the next one is just to keep up with the cost of inflation. And like I said, we'll probably be doing this again once the general plan is adopted to see where the board's going to choose to put development.
And I think we'll jump on that pretty quickly and be able to use the impetus of all the public input for the general plan as public input for the next nexus study and to be ready to roll.
That's a good idea.
So one of the comments I hear about the fee schedule, when you look at highway commercial, and, you know, I think the comment was made, we want to build a movie theater. And if we build this movie theater adjoining Highway 26, and it's a 50,000 square foot movie theater, then that highway commercial.
Can I say that nobody has...
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's the next.
Nobody's... Okay.
Mixing them up.
My agenda items, I got to get them straight here.
That's
Excuse
okay.
me. I'll
I mean,
save
I
that
think-
question.
Yeah,
We can discuss both of them. They're
Okay.
somewhat,
Are we gonna discuss both of them?
somewhat interchangeable if it needs to be. But if you can wait, that would help.
All I would request is that we make it clear we're opening and closing the public hearing
Right.
of each item separately.
Right.
Why don't we just wrap up the
Okay, that's fine. That's
first one
fine.
here?
Um,
Eight.
Do you have any questions for Ms. Mullen on this item only? Does any members of the public have any questions or comments on just this item, the annual report and reaffirming the project list?
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I understand and agree with the idea of user pay. When people use something, you should pay for it. And I think this is an attempt to do that, but it's kind of convoluted. At the time that a lot of this process was generated, we had a different economic climate than we do today. Today, we hardly have any development in the county. And what little bit that tries to generate, we crush. So the fees that we're talking about, I think Tuolumne County has around $3,000 something for their rim fees, and
That's the next item, Mr. Scalp. You want to talk about the fees itself?
we're not supposed to talk about the rim fees?
Well, we've agreed we're going to talk about the annual report and the project list.
Okay,
So-
we recommend that you do not increase the amount
That's
that's
the
requested.
next item, Mr. Segala.
But now
You
we-
can get up and talk about it next time.
Okay,
Do you want
thank
to
you.
talk about the annual report or the project list?
Okay, I
We know how you feel, but
Yeah, you don't
you
even
can
have
say
to.
it
all right.
again.
You just raise your hand.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Segala. Any comments on these two items?
Joe Kelly. Pool Station Road has an engineer's cost estimate of $26,888,830. A 74.6 cost allocation to new development of $20,059,067 to fill the coffers to fund the project. 4,413 is the magic number of homes that need to be applied for the proposed new rim fees. Under the old rim fees, the housing number was 4,529, 116 homes more than the proposed new rim fee. Nagging questions. How much property in the Pool Station Road corridor is able and available to be developed? Why is cost allocation to new development 74.6% when Railroad Flat Road is 46.6% cost allocated new development, and Mountain Ranch Road is 13.4% cost allocated new development? I think it was Mr. Wright that said that Pool Station was better off than Mountain Ranch Road. Are the engineer cost estimates based on today's labor and materials costs? Resolution 07242, 40 acres to mule, public water and sewer moratorium needs to be addressed along with the road ordinance road classification. In this, because the Mossby's project is a prime example. In that project was 4 lots of 10 acres with a remainder what was proposed. The county would have had $17,716 current rim fee revenue or $18,180 proposed rim fee revenue. The remainder lot would offer an additional rim fee revenue, but the ownership would remain in ownership of the group. It would offer an additional rim fee, but it would be complicated. The remainder lot cannot be sold legally to another party without the completion of a subdivision map act. The subdivision map caused by the remainder, depending upon the quantity of additional lots, would be subject to rim fees. More money for the purpose of defraying all or portion of the cost of public facilities related to the development project, GS 6600B. The rim fee program is to fund transportation improvements required to mitigate the cumulative impacts of new development, California Mitigation Fee Act 1987. The word moratorium encompasses Pool Station Road's direct and indirect access properties. Historically, in California, agriculturalists feel development pressures sell when development happens around them. The Right to Farm Act is in place to assist agriculture to remain until the dollar pressure overwhelms them and the younger family members no longer want to be in agriculture. One could surmise, well, I wouldn't even go into that one. That's about Teflon Tom's voting act. If you pay a mitigation fee, a project should be allowed to go forward. 07242 and the road ordinance need to be brought into conformity with pay a mitigation fee, move forward. Those two moratorium restrictions need to be reined in. The Board of Supervisors need to apply priority standards to mitigation fees versus moratorium restrictions. Everything I see today, it seems to apply Keynesian economics, price competition, high bid wins, or allocation by bureaucracy rationing. Simply put, pay to play. I suggest you continue both items until the resolution 07242 and the road ordinance and the rim fee schedule can be publicly discussed as to the 07242 moratorium and road ordinances, road standards, and the rim fee program used correctly as mitigation of new development impacts as to the interaction of the three issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any other public comments on the annual report or the project list? I want to bring it back to the board. Are there any further board comments on these two?
Chair Callaway, can I address that
Right.
comment? Because it's a common misperception, and that is the exact issue we litigated in the litigation. If anybody wants to read the opinion, it's online. The percentage of allocation of new development has absolutely nothing to do with development on these particular roads. What this means is that under the traffic circulation anticipations that the traffic consultant put together, the traffic generated that uses Pull Station Road is 74% attributable to new development in the county, not on Pull Station Road. The same as where all of these other percentages came from. It's anticipated that new traffic in all parts of the county will use these roads in that percentage. The mitigation fee cannot include maintenance. So because the county did not adopt a fee from 1994 to 2003, all of the impact during that time is not captured by this fee. The reason why this number is so high is if you look at the traffic studies that were done as part of this, it was anticipated that if the traffic did not use Highway 49, all new traffic would use Pull Station Road. And I'm sure you've done that many times. You've used Pull Station Road. So that's where these numbers come from. It is not the development along Pull Station Road or along Railroad Flat Road, etc., that generates these numbers. I just want to make that clear because that's what we spent 2 years litigating, and that is not what the Nexus study says.
Thank you.
So the headline to that would be really helpful.
I did provide a copy of the opinion to the newspaper.
Yeah, no, not that headline, but the headline here, because I think that's what gets confusing. People are looking at their road, and if they want to build or not or whatever, that's the focus, instead of looking at the broad-based Calaveras County. These fees are going into the broad-based Calaveras County system. And we have happened to prioritize from years past and continued support of prioritizing these particular roads.
Yes.
I forgot to announce that, excuse me, this was a public hearing, so are there any other public comments on this? I want to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for any deliberation, questions, or comments. Go ahead, Mr. Spellman.
As in years past, I'd just like to point out, from my perspective as supervisor of District 5, that I see Milton Road on here and also Jenny Lynn Road, which run into each other and become one and the same at some point. So I also see Burson Road on here, which goes from District 5 to District 1, which is obviously a very integral road that goes in between Highway 12 and 26, which is good. However, the bulk of the population, as denoted by the last census in 2010, is in Rancho Calaveras. And the major interconnector road that travels through that, the only small urban designated place in the county of Rancho Calaveras is Baldwin, which runs from Highway 26 all the way down to Jenny Lynn Road. That is a major interconnector that is maintained by the county. And in the event of a catastrophe in, again, the only small urban area with about 5,000 people on one place, that road definitely needs improvement. And I don't know, if you chip away some off of Milton and Jenny Lynn to come up with the money for that, or you reconfigure it or whatever. But and I know this is like a wish list. Like Deborah said, we don't have enough money to do a fraction of these. But just for the sake of acknowledging the importance of the geographic location and importance of that in the event of a catastrophe, I think that Baldwin should be added to the list. Whether that ever gets done, or any of these ever get done, other than the priority list, which is the first 4 or 5 there, is yet to be seen. I don't know if it ever will happen in my lifetime. However, I think that it does.
We just got to get developers in there.
No, that's not the answer.
No.
The issue, that can be done when
We've
we
already
do
got
the
the biggest concentration of population in the county in my area.
And density.
So would that be something, as I heard earlier, excuse me, but is that something that as we go forward with the general plan and the Nexus study, that what Supervisor Spellman is saying, Baldwin and maybe other roads, this list could be
Absolutely. I
massaged.
think a new set of criteria can be developed that serves the land use that is determined by the land use element of the general plan. It needs to go together. It needs to fit.
And actually, what we did last time around for the Nexus study in picking the roads is, as I recall, there were at least 10 to 12 pages of alternate sets of roads with the fee attached to it, and the board would go through all of those and determine, and that's how they chose these and the fee, and so that would definitely be part of the Nexus study.
That's good.
Okay. Any other further comments or questions on this item?
If you had 5,000 people trying to evacuate on Baldwin Road, that'd be a big hot mess real quick.
If there's no further comment, I'll entertain a motion for agenda item 8.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Wright, a second by Supervisor Spellman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved on a 5-0 vote. Thank you. Oh, excuse me. Wait. Yes. I'm missing. Oh, here it is. Move to item 9. There'll be a public hearing to adopt a resolution increasing the road impact mitigation fee by 2.62% in conformance with Government Code 66001 and the effective county code. Yvonne, did you want to lead this, please?
Yeah, I can say a few things. This is the inflation increase in the fee over the last year. It was increased 2.99% last year. The board can choose not to impose the increase. You can also choose to consider other inflation-type increases if you think that you want to raise it more because we have increased right-of-way acquisition costs or environmental design costs. Don't think you're going to go there. The other change that's accommodated by the fee schedule that's the attachment to this item is that we have taken accessory dwelling, put it in the multifamily category. It was never called out in the previous ordinance whether, only that an accessory dwelling would be charged a RIM fee, and we have been charging the regular single-family rate on that. But in March, the zoning code was changed to bring forward the state direction that accessory dwellings be more easily permitted. So they're now in the little box that's single family. The other thing I'd like to mention is that the general highway commercial that Supervisor Pawnee mentioned for movie theater, we have not ever used that highway commercial. I think of it as like a gas station that's often off-ramp for a highway, but all our commercial development that's been on state highways has also been either part of a larger shopping center and has that rate, or it's been the small retail. So the idea of the high cost of the RIM fee for a movie theater, I've heard that before at meetings, and I don't know if you heard me squawking in my cubicle, but nobody's ever brought that to me to calculate, and it's not something that's on our fee schedule. We would look at that at the Institute of Traffic Engineers manual that we use as the basis for RIM fees for items that are not on the schedule. So we would look at that. So I don't think it would be high as the rumors have it.
Can we
Thank
talk
you.
about that? Can we just,
I can't.
maybe
Yeah.
not right now, but can we at some point have a discussion so we can just put that to rest?
I would love for
All of
somebody
us
to
are-
send me the details of
Yeah.
what is being proposed, what size.
I can tell you where that came from. That was actually brought up during the original RIM fee hearings. There was a movie theater being proposed. I wouldn't even say proposed. It was a concept down in Valley Springs attached to a retail center that was being proposed.
We would love that.
Yeah.
We would love
And
that.
the original, just to explain how this fee came apart, the ITE journals have graphs, and there are basically bell curves. And they have very general use definitions, as you can see in the graph that we have here. Those are the same ones. They're very broad, and they have a low number and a high number, and then they're based on traffic studies throughout the United States, and they're a bell curve, and normally you fall at the top where the majority of the traffic impacts are. However, there is a lot of discretion granted to Public Works. Nobody ever came in and actually asked for a movie theater, but we did address that, and you can see in our graph how we reallocated, it says right there, to residential development at the board's request. And we went back and redid the nexus study to do that. The other thing is we adopted a modification procedure into the ordinance as a result, and it allows the developer to bring us a traffic study that shows that the traffic impacts are a lot less than is shown in the ITE journal. And a few developers have done that, and Public Works has adopted a different fee as a result of that. That's how the fee's calculated as of now. And we litigated that too, and the court said that was so.
Thank you for that clarification, because I think that's another item that gets hashed and rehashed, and it's no longer truthful.
It takes on a life of its own.
Yeah.
I mean, how much money would it be then? I mean,
Well, the number that I heard was they were claiming it was $170,000 per screen.
Wow.
So
That
if you
was,
wanted
the
to
number,
attend screen,
that was the number that was
you'd
thrown
claim
out back when we
Wow.
adopted this. But like she said, nobody's actually came.
Somebody called me once, it's been years, and asked me that, and I said, well, where? What size? Where is it located? He goes, well, it's just sort of hypothetical. I said, oh, then give me a hypothetical development that's on our schedule, and I can come up with a reasonable, otherwise we're going to be doing some research and some analysis and asking a lot more questions. So it's not something that you can quickly come up with a fee.
But if you look at the schedule, the traffic engineer, the assumptions are that if you build within a retail, I'm just going to call it a shopping strip because that's what they usually are, there's a lot lower fee per use because the theory is that you come and park, and you shop at a lot of different of the stores there. You're not going to this store and that store and this store, so that fee's lower. And that particular movie theater was proposed as part of a retail shopping center at the time.
So you're saying it would have a different assessment if it was as part of a shopping development versus a standalone theater?
It's lower, yes.
Yeah, you see there's a general service commercial is a shopping center less than 100,000 square feet. In general retail is shopping center greater than 100,000 square feet. And there's a difference in the fee. So the bigger the shopping center, the lower the rate.
And the original schedule that originally came to the board, the very first public hearing, had movie theater on it, and that's where this all came from.
Okay. Thank you.
So it took you a whole year to bring that out, huh?
Sometime you should come and look at all of the things that happened over those 2 years of public hearings. So
Deborah,
how much thought and process went into it with the board.
when you mentioned the accessory dwelling, is that going on the fee schedule under single family? Did I hear that correctly?
No, it was single
Or
family, now it's multifamily.
Accessory, okay.
And we've actually, since somebody came to the board this summer about an issue about their accessory dwelling, we've been charging the lower rate ever since, at that time and ever since.
Okay. Thank you.
So it's, yeah.
So how do you, can you explain the increase of 2.6% a little bit in more detail?
It's pursuant to the Engineering News Record Construction Cost Index for 20 cities, and it's that's the index mentioned in the RIM fee ordinance, and it's based on some things that are not really
It seems like
directed to road building, but it comes out I've kind of compared it to other indices.
So, but I mean, so what are you looking at here? You're not looking at actual cost of doing any of the physical construction, but other costs?
We're using a standard, an industry standard inflation for construction costs.
But it doesn't seem like it's gone up 2.62% here in Calaveras in the last year.
I don't know. Asphalt prices have increased, oil, but I can't really answer to that. I don't know.
Well, I wouldn't feel comfortable about raising that rate unless I had some more information.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, one of the things that I hate the most about those things, like we had to approve the lease for the Colombo building that was talked about earlier. We're forced to pay rates based on Oakland metropolitan area for price per square foot.
I don't know if we're forced to increase.
You're not enforced.
We're not, but I'm just saying those on that one we were forced supposedly. This one actually makes more sense to me than that.
Well, I don't know if it makes more sense. I haven't seen any information to support the increase.
Well, as much as I don't like the increase, the cost of doing business for us as a county for the road crews to go out there and the asphalt is costing more, the gravel is costing more, the transportation is costing more, the maintenance on the vehicles is costing more.
Right, but you're just saying that in general. Like, I'd like to have some numbers, so maybe the 2.62% is actually like, this is how much it went up, and this is how much we need to increase the fee to cover it. Nice little chart.
So if you look at the chart that's attached to your item, it doesn't go into that level of detail, but what it says is it's based on 200 hours of common labor at the 20-city average common labor rates, 25, let's see, WT, somebody help me, the standard structural steel shapes, mill prices, fabrication of pipes. So it's Portland cement pipe increases, lumber increases. So they develop this rate based on a compilation of
I understand it's standard
factors.
But what I'm asking for is more details specific to Calaveras, because we're asking citizens of Calaveras to pay the higher fee. So I'd like to have it linked to something that's actually happening here.
So the standard saves us from having to do that level of work on the cost estimates we're using are still, they're based on the original ones that were done for the Nexus study. They were updated in, the projects were evaluated, and the costs of the county road projects was updated in 2009. But if we were to go out and reevaluate those again and really look at how much earthwork is required and what's the going rate of the day, right there we would eat up the whole increase, and that's why you use an index to give you a general.
I don't believe that's what Mr. Wright's saying.
Oh, my
He just
misunderstanding.
kind of wants a feel of what does it actually cost
I can speak
to
to
do
that.
something for a road.
Well, I don't want you to speak to it because you don't know. What I want is the.
Actually,
Well, no, you don't. You don't have the.
Okay.
You do. You have
All
all
right,
the
just
details.
a second.
not all the details.
You understand.
But I wanted to get
I understand
you
what's
where it's going.
okay. I don't have those figures at hand.
Okay.
Because I think I'd rather vote on a 5% increase after we do the nexus of the general plan than vote on a 2.61 where I don't have enough information to make that choice.
Actually, that's what I was going to speak to. I've looked into this in the past, and for this particular one, the what is it, construction cost index or whatever that's spread over the 20 cities and all that, actually our costs are higher. Because
that would be good information to have for the board, so we can make the appropriate decision.
So yeah, I mean, and you're right. You said you'd rather approve 5% if that's what it actually was, and actually,
or at least have that discussion so we actually know what we're.
You're headed in the right direction on that one, because really it is. I mean, the 2.62 is not really commensurate with what we pay. And an example of that is just like some big project we did recently within the last 6 months. I was talking about like hot, the what do you call it, blacktop type stuff, like Cliff was talking about price going up. There was only one person that bid on the project that had a yard close enough to get it to us before the stuff cooled off. Like you can't do mass quantities of that and transport it more than a certain amount of miles, or it cools off to the point that you can't use it. So like certain things like that, our costs actually are right, north of that.
Sure, and
So,
but
yeah.
you're making, like I say, you're just making kind of a blanket statement based on, one or two experiences. So it'd be better to have the actual numbers, and if that takes too long for this 1 year increment, let's come back when we have, in a couple of years from now, the general plan is complete and we have that would be my suggestion.
To do the next.
Yeah, wait, table the
assessment.
increase until we have the change.
Any other supervisor comments this time? I want to open the public hearing. Are there any public members who would like to address the road impact fee in conformance with our government code and county code? Mr. Segala?
House of Gala Taxpayer Association. Remember we discussed the wisdom of having user pay, where people use a service, they pay for it, and the attempt in doing that with this process, the RIM fee process. On the face of it, it appears that the $4,500 is pretty high for somebody to build a home to go into a fund that supposedly is going to pay for the increase in traffic caused by that home. And I got a suspicion that there is not a nexus. There's no real connection between the two. It's more of a funding mechanism and a way to tax people for future development of roads. The best tax for roads, and as a taxpayer association, it's hard to say this, but the best tax is the gas tax. Because I'm not advocating increasing the gas tax, but part of the problem we're suffering in our county is policies that the state has done. If the money that people are being taxed by the mile they drive, by the gallon, was used for roads, including creation of new roads when it's needed, that we wouldn't have this problem to begin with. A good portion of that money is spent in other ways, even trying to run a railroad or create a railroad, which is ridiculous. And so, also, the county of Tuolumne, I understand, is more than the $3,000 range, which is a little bit better, and might make it more feasible for people to build a home in our county.
I thought that was interesting, actually. That was a good point. Like, why is Tuolumne less than that?
Well, they have a two-stage, I understand, that has to do with the size of acreage, which may be more logical, a more logical approach. But the point is that I think this thing needs to be looked at more closely, and also there needs to be some effort made through organizations with the counties, the CSAC, to bring about some state reform in regards to the gas tax, because this is really tearing us up. And also it's so complex you can't figure it out. So we recommend that you do not approve the increase in the fee.
Thank you, Mr. Segala.
David Tuno, Rancho Calaveras. I'd like to get a couple of questions on the floor that maybe we can get some answers for the benefit of everybody. But prior to the enactment of the RIM fee, roads in this county were paid for how? And what has been the real difference in the quality of the roads before and after? I mean, for 100 years, roads in this county were paved, not all of them, but gradually they got paved, until the RIM fee was enacted. How much better are they now than they were before? And if the answer is none, then the RIM fee is not working. Also, the RIM fee for residential is based upon the notion, by some formula that nobody can understand, that a person buying a house, a new house, is going to impact the roads by that person going to and from various businesses in the county. They've got something to do, so they're going to use the roads. Then someone comes along like Mr. Edson, who wants to open a cafe, And he has to pay a rim fee for, guess what? People coming to and from his business.
On the state highway.
On whatever road. So the person paying their fee, the rim fee for their house, the justification was going to and from places impacting the roads. Now someone comes along and opens up a business and they pay another rim fee for the same trip. It's been paid for already by the resident, and now it's being paid for again by the person opening up a business. Not only that, but it also doesn't make sense on a use basis. You charge a person $4,500 for a rim fee on this new house that they put in. But the traffic, their impact on the roads isn't on day one. They don't impact the roads $4,500 on the day they get their permit. The road impact is over the life of that home and whoever lives there. So even if rim fees were justified, as in before we didn't have a good system and now we do, that question is still on the table. The justification for it should be that it is spread over time. Pick a number, 20 years, 30 years, some period of time, instead of on day one, which is not when the impact happens.
So put it on the property tax bill.
Put it on the tax bill, or put it on wherever you want it. Call it a county mortgage. You're going to pay this fee, but we know you're not going to impact our roads $4,500 worth on day one. That's going to be over your lifetime and the next person's lifetime, and it just goes on forever. But you do have to pick a number. So pick a number and say, this property owes this amount of money to our county over this period of time. Put an interest rate on it if you want to. Whatever the interest is accrued from the normal investments that our county gets, 3%, some small amount, you stick that on there. So that, in fact, the county, over time, makes a little bit of money on this lien. That makes sense. If it makes sense to charge a property a fee for use, then it makes sense to charge the property a fee for use over time. Because that's when the use happens. That's when the impact happens.
So you would do the same for your school funding?
Well, what school funding? Like a building? When
people get a permit, they pay X amount, I don't remember what it is, that goes per square foot.
Actually, you're kind of right and you're kind of wrong, because a person who buys a house and pays for a school may not ever use the school. Correct. But in the social good world that we live in, yes. Okay? So, lastly, going back to this formula for whereby a rim fee is established, going to and from businesses, amenities within the county, our rim fees should be rock bottom, because there's no place to go. As compared to Tuolumne, as compared to Amador. If you live in Tuolumne County, you don't have to go very far to get all of your shopping needs. Here, you frequently have to go to Stockton, or Tuolumne, or Amador counties. So by comparison, they ought to be quite a bit cheaper. But let me just conclude by saying that our coffers problem isn't that we're not charging enough for rim fees. Our coffers problem is that we don't have any development here. And if you cut out rim fees completely, eliminated them, a rim fee holiday, a rim fee holiday, advertise it, now developers can say, gosh, I'm going to save money by building my development in Calaveras County versus Amador or someplace else. I do that. Now I've got property taxes that go to the county, or at least a portion of them, forever. Not just a one-time fee, but forever.
Well, Mr. Tunai, to tell you, Amador had a no building fee for years, and it did not increase building in Amador County. Because if people want to build in Calaveras or in Amador, they're going to do it per the experiment that Amador had. I mean, I don't think I think your ideas are worth looking at. Maybe when we do the next nexus study, those are things that can be taken into consideration.
I really like your idea of having it start, year one and move throughout the life of the property. Because what it does is also it allows for people who say they own their piece of property, but they can't, afford that extra $4,000 right up front. Then you can put it, you can pay a little bit of it each for 30 years or whatever, as you say, like a mortgage to the county. So I think actually that idea, I don't know if it'd be legal.
It's not legal. I apologize. You have to talk to Sacramento about that one.
All right, that was a good idea, though.
Well, wait a minute.
Sacramento.
Not legal on what basis?
There's no statutory authority for the county to charge a fee that way. This fee is covered under the Mitigation Fee Act, and it is a building permit fee.
So we can't take the building permit fee and make it so you charge it out over 20 years?
We have looked at that, and in fact, many jurisdictions did during the economic downturn. The problem is that you then become a collection agency. And the costs outweigh the benefits at that point in time. And if you just do some research, you'll note that most of the jurisdictions that tried to do that ended up dropping it pretty fast, unfortunately.
I'd like...
And I just want to reiterate, when you look at the graph, this was a big concern of the board. The board took the commercial impact fees and directed the consultant to transfer them to commercial. And if you read the Nexus study, the reason for that is because in addition to the residences driving the need for commercial, you're not going to build commercial unless you have residences there to come shop there. The other way we dropped the fee was, you'll see there's a thing called bypass pass-through trips. That was a calculation that the traffic engineer did that said, okay, I'm going to go to Marval. On the way to Marval, I'm going to stop here, here, and here. Therefore, we're going to spread the fee among all the different commercials so that they're not all paying XXX. We dropped it down. I mean, you really need to look at the Nexus study to see how we did that.
But I mean, as far as collecting, and this gets back to the larger permitting question, as far as needing to collect all the money up front, that's how we do it right now. When you go to finalize your building permit, you have to have all the fees paid for before you're final, right?
Yes.
No, when you pay for your building, you pay all those fees.
Right. Yes. Okay. So what if we change that?
That's already done, though, really. When they go to build their home or a project, they usually have a loan, and the loan is usually put out for like 30 years, so it is spread out.
Well, usually, but if you don't want to get a loan to do it, why can't we have something in there that allows us to...
The Mitigation Fee Act authorizes you to collect it at the building permit fee or the occupancy.
Excuse me, I can't quite hear that.
The Mitigation Fee Act authorizes this fee to be collected at the building permit fee or the occupancy.
Occupancy.
Occupancy of the building. In order to collect it at the building fee stage, you had to make findings, which the board chose to do. And the reason why is, at the time, we actually had issues with people building, and we still do. They pull a building permit, and they never come back and get an occupancy permit. So, you become a co-complaints agency. So...
But is there any... Well, you're saying you can't allow that to be paid off in increments over the course of a year or two?
Again, jurisdictions tried that. They did.
So
they waived it. They put it off for a year, particular commercial. The problem is that if you're not a feasible business, you're never going to pay that fee.
But I'm not talking about business. I mean the private individual.
The same thing. If you're not feasible, if you're not ready to build it, then the fee never got paid. And then what? Do we want to go to court? Do we want to put a lien on the property?
But wait a second.
Ultimately, the fee wasn't getting paid. So most of the jurisdictions...
It's just that you're saying it hasn't been... I think we should explore it. I mean...
We did explore it at the board's direction a few years back.
Do you have that information? You can email it to me.
I don't know if... I will look for it and see if I still have it. I keep my documents.
Counsel, you mentioned a fee not being paid for a project that wasn't done. correct?
No.
You said,
That's not
you were describing a circumstance under which a fee never got paid. Maybe I
No,
didn't.
I have not, no, we collected the building permit. Okay, what I said was there were counties and cities during the economic downturn that chose to look at alternatives, including letting someone occupy the building and pay the fee over time.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, that turned out to not be financially feasible for the jurisdiction because it never got paid.
It never got paid. Why?
Because of the economic downturn. If you can't pay it up front, you obviously have some financial problems to start with. So most of the counties and cities stopped doing that as a result of that. They
Well,
don't want to be
having financial problems to start with doesn't mean you're going to have financial problems forever. I mean, that's the whole
I'm
point.
not saying that. I'm saying the experience showed that that's what happened.
Well,
So, you know,
I think you're right that I think it ought to be looked at. It just seems to make sense on its face.
Yeah, at least.
Okay?
so
Now-
you know, I think that most of us agree that we should probably, I mean, it's good discussion. Maybe we can look at it. I, for one, agree with you on the commercial rent fees and industrial type rent fees. You know, I'd like to see them lower, but I don't think this particular agenda number is suited for that long distance.
Well, okay, Mr. Edson, but consider this. People like myself come to these board meetings on our own time, and I can't, if I may, I can't wait for the perfect agenda item to come up to discuss this issue. Fair enough?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Are there any other public comments on this item?
I know you're holding your breath. Peter Rich, gentlemen. A lot of things legal, but it's not always right. A lot of things are right, but it's not always legal. On that note, there was a mention about you don't want to be a collection agency. You're a collection agency, CCWD folks, voluntarily, okay? Let them collect their own money. But you're connecting road use for living at the property. Does anybody in this county knows how many vehicles and where those vehicles located, what district? Because we're paying 47 cents a gallon. We're paying the highest gas tax in the country. You say, hey, you own the property, and I don't care if you ride a horse or a bicycle. You're going to pay for road maintenance. Okay? Does anybody in the county knows the traffic and how much each car, well, you're not going to know how much each car pays, okay? But you got a concept at each address. Because in my street, there's a couple of buildings not occupied, but they pay for the road. How does it affect the people who are just part-time residents in the county? Residency and road use is two different things. One of the houses down the street, 4 or 5 cars, because they had 3 or 4 kids. The other house, a lady lives by themselves, she pays the same amount, but for one vehicle. So, I would love to know, and right now, nobody in the county has been able to tell me where the cars are registered, because then you can get some idea where the gas tax goes to. Somebody owns a property, 2 acres or 5 acres. It doesn't tell you how much vehicle use it's going to have. The other thing is that I know you're looking for ways to get more money, but I haven't heard too much about how to save some more money. I mean, take a look at Public Works, folks. It's not exactly the most efficient agency. It's not an angel's list. Gas tax. Another thing is, you want to compete with the counties around here? Supply and demand. Get the cost down. Give people incentive to do business here. It might cost you something. There's so little building going around the county. Give them some bait. Get them over here. And when they're really clamoring for the business, then you can jack it up. But right now, economically, is it going to benefit you by raising the fees? Is that really going to make people come on down and, hey, let's build here because we can pay up through the butt? There's no business here. Give them a chance to give them an incentive to come down here and do business with you. You know, the loss would be minimal. You don't have that much business. What incentive do you have for anybody to start business? For years, you try to kill business. I'm not saying it's anybody's fault here. Well, I could name one or two, but you've been killing business. Give people incentive to do business here. If they have businesses, you got employment. And if you have employment, you're going to have income. And most human beings strive to do better. Give them an incentive to come to this county. But I would love to know where the cars are, because then you're going to know where the traffic is and where the money is coming or going. But give people incentive to do business here first, not turn them away. Oh, because the other county is doing it. Hey, we're worst of the worst between the two counties, left and right. Economically, we're doing worse than either one of them. And with all the brains and talent we have here on this board, come up with something different. Don't use an excuse to raise more money. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments on this item?
Joe Kelly, wow, what a good discussion. Mr. Tuno, Peter, we're missing something here, folks. This is a forecast development. It isn't asking the people to pay, it's asking the developer to pay. A building permit collection for development. So, but we have no development. We have 07242, 40 acres and a mule, public water and sewer. We have a road ordinance with road standards that won't allow people to build on substandard roads. Why? Because there's no money to fix the darn road. So what are you really doing? Well, now you're attempting to direct where that money can be taken from existing lots if people want to buy those existing lots. You're going to get hammered if people are buying. There's a property out by me for $99,900 right now, 10 acres, with something to be torn down. They'll do like I did. Somebody will buy that, skip your RIM fee, because I've got square footage replacement. So you folks are not, what I'm getting at with a 07242, the road ordinance, everything else. You have to look at the whole pie. Don't just cut it up into sections and say, we're only going to look at this. You have to look at the complete, complex issues. And that's what's here. And all you're going to do is maybe throw in a fee increase, and we'll be nowhere different than we were 5 or 10 years ago, or 07, when 242 came into place. Figure out what you want. Everybody talks jobs. Everybody talks wanting something to happen. It's not going to happen because you've got all this other paramount issues to overcome. We need something to change in Calaveras County. This is a mitigation fee tied to a permit. It should be looked at that somebody should be able to, it should be tied to something, a payment, if it's going to be there, that if they can go forward and be able, like the Mosby project, they could go forward and have their project, pay the county, the fees are there, and is that really going to harm Pool Station Road? The other thing I want to say is, I don't know what's going on. I don't think maybe some people read the same stuff I do. This concept of mitigation fees and increasing them has taken on the complex issue of how far out do we want to go for them using that road to increase that mitigation fee to. In other words, it will be an in perpetuity or perpetual cost, but it will be paid at one time. They have to look out 20 years and say, well, there's what it's going to cost us to do that road, do all the repaving, do all the maintenance and repair. And that's what's being talked about in other government agencies. So you folks have me totally messed up in my mind, because all I see is all the restrictions, moratoriums, and everything else here, and yet you want to raise fees, yet you don't want to give anything to allow somebody to do a development here. Now, Pool Station Road is, well, how many people own property on Pool Station Road? How many individual families own property there? It's pretty much owned by one family or multiple of that, but not like where I live, where there's 10-acre parcels and the like. So you've got it giving them, they're getting the benefit of Pool Station Road without any cost to them for the benefit of the repair and maintenance to it, other than the gas tax, or fuel tax, I should say. And there are big trucks going down that road hauling cattle, and there's heavy-duty pickups pulling cattle. And when it comes up Roundup, there's all kinds of them going up and down the road. So what do we do in Calaveras County besides stay behind the 8 ball? We need to change, to say what Mr. Edson said. It ain't working. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Are there any other public comments on this item? I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Is there any further discussion or questions on behalf of the board members on this item?
I'll just, I'm not in support of this at this point. I kind of go with what Chris said is, what are our costs and associated with it. Just to say that we do this, and we do this because it's an index that we follow, may have worked in the past. I think in today's world, in our world here in Calaveras County, I think we need to take, again, the efforts of our general plan and get that up and going moving forward. There's going to be lots of studies associated with that, and I hate to kind of piecemeal this particular fee along the way. So I'm looking at the much bigger picture of having our general plan in place, having that roadmap. I know other nexus studies are going to have to follow a line with that, and I think that would be the appropriate time to look at this particular fee, if it's increased or not, as we move forward with our general plan. So at this point, I'm not supporting this particular ordinance or resolution.
Any other comments by the board members?
Yes, I also am not supporting this this item because many of the reasons that Debbie said, but also because one of the things that I've noticed here when I hear of a development that wants to come into, it's really not the REM fee that's has been holding them back as far as the homes go, but all the other fees associated with it. And so with building, or like Joe was talking about, the mitigation fee for a road. It's mitigation and RIMs, two different things. So they get hammered when they try to do a home, let's say on Pool Station Road, and a lot of folks can't afford that. But I think that Debbie's right. I think it belongs with when we do our general plan update, and so I will not support this.
Mr. Stillman?
I find myself in agreement ideologically with Mr. Segala and his opinion of the Taxpayers Association in terms of how our tax dollars are best spent. One of the core functions of government dating back to our founding fathers were 3 basic principles. 1, to generate enough money to have a standing army to protect our borders. Number 2, to have a local law enforcement entity to be able to protect our constitutional rights. And the third most important thing on that list was major infrastructure construction and maintenance for the idea of commerce. So things like bridges, roads, those things like that to facilitate commerce and the interconnectivity so that we can have an economic engine. So when I look at people talking about fees for roads and road construction related to new construction or otherwise, I know I have the tendency to drive over on Highway 49 to, 16 or something, then to Latrobe Road, take Latrobe over to 50. And when you come out on Latrobe, on the north end of Latrobe, where it tees into Highway 50 there, that's the newer part of the El Dorado Hills area, which is much like ours in terrain, in geography. You'll find there that there is a substantial amount of development there, especially near the freeway, where you'll see technology parks that have high-paying jobs. You'll see some very nice homes. You'll see some commercial centers, including a very nice multiplex cinema. And the interesting thing about that is that El Dorado Hills has one of the highest REM fees in fee-related structures of any city in the entire state of California. So what I see is that people who are looking to develop multiplex cinemas, that are looking to develop technology centers or campuses that would facilitate high-paying jobs, they're looking for a place that has fees and structures in place that will allow the flow of traffic and commerce such that they have a dependable system for those things to take place. And they're not going to come to a place like Calaveras County where on Highway 26 between my house and Marval, there's not even a foot of shoulder. As soon as you go over the white line, you're in the ditch. I mean, it's locally known as the gauntlet, between the golf course and the supermarket. And I personally lost a personal friend of mine to a tragic accident. He was on a Harley-Davidson motorcycle driving at 76 degrees, sun was shining, wasn't inclement weather, it was a beautiful day. Him and his mother. And a lady went to dial her radio or something like that. One of her tires got off the pavement a little bit. She overcorrected, and my friend was dead on arrival. I mean, there was no resuscitation. When the people got there, he was done. So, the idea that not charging adequate funds to pay for roads and services, that's somehow going to entice people to do development in our county is absurd. There's absolutely no correlation to that that anybody can point to that would lead me to believe that that's the case. In fact, I see otherwise. You see development in Silicon Valley. I mentioned El Dorado Hills. You want to go to places that have the highest per capita income and the most highly qualified workforce, the best real estate values for the people who invest their hard-earned money in their homes, in property. Those are the places that have the highest fees, and because they have the best infrastructure. Nobody wants to invest their life savings in some place that doesn't even have any place to pull off the road if they get a flat tire without taking their life into their hands. So, in terms of the cost associated with keeping up with the times, I understand the point that Supervisor Wright has made and that some of the other supervisors have weighed in terms of what's the true cost. And I agree, we should be able to know what the true cost is. And what I would submit to you is that, Supervisor Wright, I don't know all the answers on that. I know very little, and I openly admit that. But what I do know is that what I do know would lead me to believe, or has proven true so far, that the actual costs for doing that kind of work actually exceeds that cost index that you see used in the rest of the state because of our geographic isolation to large urban centers. We actually have a higher cost. 18 months ago approximately, I sat in a meeting in Napa at the Silverado Resort, and I listened to people talk about these issues in a breakout session of governmental agencies. And right next door to Napa is Sonoma County, where our CIO came from. And the gentleman from Sonoma County said that they were going to take roads that were paved and revert them to gravel or chip seal because people were unwilling to pay what it cost to maintain even the roads they had. Not talking about building new roads. And when I came back from that conference 18 months ago, I started talking to old-timers, quote-unquote, people that have been in Calaveras County for their whole life, it's in my area, in my district. And what I found out was that up until the 1980s, roads like Hospital Road, Pettinger Road, some of those major roads that go north-south between 12 and 26 were gravel up until the 1980s. Okay? So in Sonoma County, they said, they just took it to the people. They said, you're either going to pay for the roads to be maintained, or we're going to just take a grinder out there, we're going to grind them up, and we're going to put them back to gravel. It's your choice. Then all of a sudden there was a big whoa, whoa, whoa. Everybody got all excited about it. They formed a committee, and they've been working on it for the last 2 years. And I just asked our CAO if she's heard any progress made, and she said no, not so far. Correct? And right now they're taking about, what did you say, $1 million?
$8 million out of the general.
$8 million out of their county general fund to put a Band-Aid on the shortfall in the amount of money that they need to maintain the roads in the interim, while people are hashing out whether or not they want to keep up with the cost index. And someday the poo is going to hit the fan. They're going to run out of money to Band-Aid it, and they're either going to have gravel roads or they're going to pay the amount of money it takes to maintain. So we're going to be in the same boat. I mean, we have to do something. It would be nice if we knew exactly what it costs, but I think that actually it costs more than what the index is. And what happens, just for the new supervisors, in the past, a lot of these things have been not unlike this, where we say, you know what, we'd rather take a deeper look at this or whatever. Then you end up 5 areas down the road, and then you're coming back in a discussion like this saying we need to increase it by 15% instead of 2%. So I would just ask you to maybe reconsider the thought of that and maybe rethink about, maybe we should just have a cooling off period and let us think about it a little bit more in terms of where we need to go with this. Because, I don't think any of us want to come back, 5 years from now and say we need to increase it 18%.
But I think that it's, I'll just have my little say now, if it's okay.
I'm done.
I think it's good to have a rational planning basis for our decision. And for me, there's this one chart here to base that increase on and some other information, but there's not enough for me to make that decision. So I'm willing to entertain it at any point in the future, but right now I'm not going to say this increase is the right amount, either too less or too much. And so until I have more specific data to make a rational decision, I won't support this increase.
Okay, well, I guess it's my turn. It's never popular or easy for elected officials to say they want an increase in a fee. It's always difficult. And we don't like to not be popular, and we don't like to make these difficult decisions. That's one reason that we put in the county code how we were going to determine this. I understand what Supervisor Wright's saying, but then we'd have to go through that process every single time we wanted to do it. So it was the more conservative estimate at the time, and it is now, so which is why we put in that we would use the engineering news record construction cost index. And there were years we did not do it. And we were slipping behind, similar to what the kinds of things Supervisor Spellman talked about. The RIM fee is not for repair and maintenance, though I think that's an interesting proposition, that if we put in repair and maintenance into the RIM fee, not sure that we can, it would be probably substantially higher. The RIM fee is just for added capacity. That's what we were sued on, and that's what was litigated, and we lost. And then it was the question of the fee itself, and that's what council litigated on and found that our list was fine and the fee schedule was fine. If the Taxpayers Association wishes to put out a ballot measure in Calaveras County to add a gas tax that's voted on by the community, I'm sure that this board would welcome their participation, and then we could look at the impact of the gas tax that's just for Calaveras and what it would be used for, and we could consider that. So if this board then wants to look at the cost, as Supervisor Wright said, then we're going to have to go back in and change the county code on how we evaluate this fee. So, I mean, that would be another day, another topic. So as I hear it, I will. So I was going to support this because it isn't difficult. It's very difficult to do it. We put a system in place that was very conservative on how we would do it. And as I said, we've had years we didn't do it because it was difficult. So we're playing catch up. And if we wait until the next Nexus study, we're probably talking at least 2 years from now before we do it. And I don't want to be going back and saying, oh, gosh, we need to increase it 8-10%. Of course, I don't know what will happen after we do that Nexus study, which probably won't be till 2 years from now. So those are my comments on agenda item 9. Is there a motion? This item dies for lack of a motion. I'd like to move to item 10, a minute order approving an increase appropriation of $10,000 to the Sheriff's Office Drug Enforcement Unit. We need a 4/5 vote of the board. Sergeant Stern, did you want to take this, please?
Good morning. Sergeant Storm with the Sheriff's Office. Yearly, the Sheriff's Department receives an allocation from the DEA for the purposes of cannabis eradication. This year, we've been notified that we can receive an additional $10,000. It's referred to by the DEA as an augmentation. This funding offset costs that we would otherwise have. It's work that has to be done anyways, and we would ask that you accept the augmentation and the appropriation adjustment.
This is new. Is there any discussion or any questions of Sergeant Stern? Does the public have any questions on this item? You did not want us to accept the money, Mr. Segala?
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I think that the drug wars are counterproductive. They're doing more harm than good, just as Prohibition did in the 30s. Prior to Prohibition, we had a certain crime rate. When Prohibition went into effect, that crime rate skyrocketed. We created a black market. We created organized crime. There's millions of people that are killed in that process. Untold billions of dollars have been expended and wasted. The same pattern is happening now, and we're probably getting close to the part where we're unwinding the wars against marijuana. I think that we don't need to have that money, but we do support the Sheriff's Office and their protection of our rights to life, liberty, and property. The drug wars are not part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Segala. Are there any other public comments or questions on this item?
Joe Kelly, I don't know that I would necessarily support it, but I am concerned because, as we've seen, perhaps you've seen in news items, the cartel is in here and around. So when they're here and around, this young man and all the fellows that work with him are really going to be in jeopardy. I don't know what the drug enforcement, the monies this will be used for in that, if it's going to be for a staffing or if it's going to be used for internal things. I have no idea. Didn't look at the object. All I'm concerned about is we have a problem. Drug enforcement. The other day I asked Mr. Moss, the Environmental Health Director, I said, what do you do when you have pharma in the water? He said, what? And I said, pharmaceuticals. We talked about it. And I said, well, how do you get it out of the water? He said, well, maybe you'd use that advanced filtration system. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it now. Huh? No, not. Anyhow, but I talked to another friend of mine yesterday, and he said, if it's water soluble, you don't get it out of the water. So what do? Do we go and say war on drugs isn't working? DARE doesn't seem to have been a very good project, and I was very familiar with it. It had its ups and downs and good and bad. So it's up to you folks to decide. But here's all I want to do is say that we've got some bad people running around here, and they don't care what you look at. Oh, by the way, something that came out, and I haven't heard the sheriff's office put anything out on it or anybody else. When you're driving at dusk, don't high beam and low beam your lights to somebody that's coming at you with their lights off. Because the bad guys now have an initiation program. They turn around and chase you down and kill you. That's the policy of it. Initiation in gang. So drug enforcement, gang, think about it.
Any other public comments on this item? I'll bring it back to the board. Is there any questions or comments the board would like to make on this?
Sure. So, Mr. Segala, I understand the drug on war on drug stuff. But there are people out here in our county, and there was a news program done on it. This one gentleman has a couple of thousand acres here in Calaveras County, and he didn't know that he had a cartel on his property growing. And not just that, but the garbage they put there, the chemicals, they alter the water streams, so they're messing with our watershed and that sort of thing. And so anything these folks can do to prevent that from happening is good with me. So it's not necessarily just a war on drugs, but there's a lot of folks out here that aren't having choices on what's happening on their place, on their property.
I understand that, and I understand that's real. But there's a case of trespassing, and the sheriff can be involved in that.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
I got a question for you. The money's not going to be used for any legitimate medical marijuana farms?
No, the money is used for the eradication of the clandestine marijuana. It could be used for indoor growing operations if they're determined that they're not in compliance with state laws and regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Stern, I have a question on the budget sheet. Wasn't really quite 10. You're going to increase the grant by 10,000, and then you're increasing overtime 10,000 and special department by 15,000.
Brian Cody,
clear with.
Brandon Cody, budget analyst. I believe there might have been a typo on this sheet. To be honest, this is kind of a difficult form to follow at times. It's simply a $10,000 modification to our DEA budget, so we'd increase the grant line by $10,000, and it should total $10,000. So we're looking for a split between overtime and special department expense. It should be 5 and 5, not 10 and 10.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's no further discussions. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
For this as modified
Second.
on the budget sheet.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Ponte, second by Supervisor Edson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Item 11 is going to, I'm sure, take a while, so maybe we can do that this afternoon. If that's fine. Pardon? Pardon?
I think they're anticipating being here at 1:30.
Okay. Thank you. We will, could you all be back at 1 and we can meet with, on the agenda items that we moved forward from this morning?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Could you let me know? We're going to stand in recess till 1:30. The board will be meeting in closed session at 1 o'clock on the closed session items that we moved out. Thank you.